Don't you laugh at me, Maxwell. God almighty. Of all the people in the world that laugh at me. That's why your house got destroyed by God, because you're laughing at me. 407-916-1041. Text us 77031. 5 o'clock keyword is check. That's what Scott had to write last week. Big check. CHECK. Get over to realradio.fm and send that away for your chance at $1,000. Check, guys, is your 5 o'clock keyword. Welcome back. I am Jim. Deb is here.
Hello.
Jack is here. Ross is here.
Time to get her smart on.
And every Wednesday around 5:20, this guy, he writes for the Orlando Sentinel. Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays you can read his column. Every single day you can find him on Twitter at Scott_Maxwell. Good and loud for our friend Scott Maxwell.
Yeah! Woohoo!
I thought God got me because I was always sticking up for the gays.
Was that what it was?
That too.
No, that's why I almost burned down Orlando. Don't you remember?
I missed that book.
Yeah. Get your insane preacher words right. What's going on, buddy? How's things?
Things are going pretty darn well, as a matter of fact. And in fact, you all may have seen big news in Orlando. They finally agreed to move forward on the Pulse, which I think we mentioned briefly a couple of weeks ago. I thought it was pretty, lame, frankly, that we hadn't done anything before now. I mean, even Vegas, who had a mass shooting long after us, had moved, and we were still dilly-dallying. And so I think that's, I don't think healing is the right word, but it was way past time to make that happen. So good to the mayors for making that.
That was pretty complicated, though, right? Because you had some private owners there, and you had a foundation that had two people involved. That's never good, because now you have to get two people who have different ideas to agree on something, and just kind of basically got held up because of that. I mean, it has been a long time, though.
Yeah, there was all sorts of complications. There was more than one investor in the property, including one that reportedly bought into the property after the shooting, which raised questions about what he was doing and was he trying to make money off of this. There were a few family members, I would definitely not say the majority, but some that did not want it to be at that location. But I think my take is that, 15 years from now, nobody really cares how you got there. They just want something like this to be there. And if you went to, as you recently did, if you went to New York to see a 9/11 memorial, you would never think, I'm going to head to Uptown or, up near Central Park to see it. You want to go and pay your respects and reverence where it happened. And I just think that this community had gotten caught up for too long. And frankly, it was just causing more strife to something that had already just torn the heart out of this community. So I wish them the best moving forward.
And I agree. I believe that was really one of the things that I couldn't kind of get beyond. Every time I read a story about the fight going on with that, you're like, oh my God, man, of all things that you kind of want to find a happy medium on and move forward, it would be something like that, and not put it out there that there's dissension in the ranks over there with this kind of tragedy. You would want that to go smoothly, but sometimes that does not happen. But it's moving forward now.
Yeah. So I think that was good news for Orlando.
Yeah. Hey, before we get into the bus thing, because I know you want to talk about that, I read this entire column. And by the way, if you don't get the Sentinel to read Scott's stuff, I think you should do that, or get a subscription for the digital version. It's dirt cheap, and the reporting is so good. And I have to tell you, buddy, I've learned how to let things just kind of roll off my back when it comes to politics and stuff like that, because you realize that it's just so insanely corrupt. And to cleanse it would be almost to change it. It seems almost insurmountable to be able to cleanse it, because it would take an army of people that were like-minded to go in and replace the people who were on the dole. But this Richard Corcoran thing,
That's been a fun follow.
I didn't know what you were building up to. Okay, yeah.
This is a tough one to take. And I have to tell you, when you talk about the idea of the transparency, and, and again, I did vote for Governor DeSantis, and I think overall, outside of the moral battles he's gotten into, he's done a pretty good job for us. I know a lot of people would disagree with me on that. But when it comes to these things that he gets into like this, I just don't care for it. And the problem is this. The problem is, it seems to be with arrogant transparency that this is happening, almost to say, what are you going to do about it? Because what's happening at this school that only has fewer than 700 students, and you pointed it out perfectly, that's about the size of a normal middle school here in Central Florida.
That also does not include the numbers of students which is about twice as many as they've lost in the previous 2 years that are not returning to New College this year.
Right.
As well as the number of faculty. They have less than 100 full-time teachers at this college. They've had 36 faculty say hell no to the changes that have been brought to New College and have left. So for all of the fancy pressers they may put out, those are the numbers you also need to pay attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and again, it is very small, and it got a lot of attention because, DeSantis
Richard
goes
Corcoran.
in and just kind of wipes everybody out and puts Richard Corcoran in there. And here's the thing that really kind of is annoying. He had a salary of $305,000 before when he was the guy who had the sitting president of New College. Again, a college with less than 700 students. That is
She,
so small. And now this guy Corcoran comes in and he has no higher education experience. And from what I understand, in Central Florida, to be a principal of even a high school or middle school, you minimum have to have a master's. And I believe if you're a principal of a high school, you have to have a PhD in education, or at least in college for sure. But the master's is a minimum to be a principal in a middle school or a high school here in Central Florida.
well, after he was the Florida House Speaker, he was made the Education Commissioner.
Right.
So isn't that experience enough,
With
Jimmy?
no experience in higher education, no experience in running schools, and they're paying this guy $700,000 a year.
Well, there's a reason why.
More than double what the old guy that ran or a woman who ran this, more than double that. Now,
And that was just the base. That was just the base.
Yeah.
That's
it
the
was
base.
a $699,000 base salary with perks that somehow included. It was like $100,000 for housing and car allowance, which is a pretty freaking hardy car and housing allowance.
And it's former President Patricia Oker.
Yeah, there you go.
And it ended up being they bumped it up to $1 million compensation package is what he has right now.
$1 million to run a school with 700 students.
And now
$1 million.
Now they want to raise it to $1.5 million.
They brought in, so that's what prompted me to write about it now, and this has to deal with the transparency you're talking about. They brought in some analysis, and I looked at it. It looked hackneyed. It looked like you picked a few private schools, almost all of which had way more students. I mean, some of these, if memory serves, had like 10 to 20 times more students, and they brought in this really, cherry-picked stats that suggested really for him to be up at where he needed to be, it should be $1.5 million. And they'll say they haven't decided to do this, but there's no reason you go ahead and pay him $1 million and then conduct an analysis for salary comparison unless you're planning on bumping that up.
Let me give you an idea how much that is. The president of UCF's base salary is $600,000. So Richard Corcoran makes $100,000 more in base salary to run a school with 700 students. The guy who runs UCF makes $600,000. He'll get a bonus. And even with a bonus and some other stuff, he would barely make as much as Richard Corcoran, who runs a school with 700 students. UCF, I believe, student-wise, is the second biggest school in America.
Yeah, behind Arizona.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
That's all correct. Does anybody ask him about this? Like when he does pressers, what does he say? What does the governor say when you ask him why Richard Corcoran makes this kind of money to run a school that's so small? What's the answer?
The right man for the right time.
Yeah.
They need somebody who's going to shake things up, get rid of the woke. This is one of the anti-woke things.
Holy balls. Holy balls.
I've been following Corcoran
God.
for years.
Yeah, and then again, and what's he probably thinking? It doesn't matter because
What are you gonna
Republicans
do?
are
Yeah, what are
going
you
to
gonna
vote
do?
for him.
Well, it does. This is what my new theory. I think politicians will do whatever they want as long as their mistake or blemish takes like 3 or 4 sentences to explain.
Yeah.
Because if it takes 3 or 4 sentences to explain, I think they go, well, the general public can't.
Yeah, they can't figure it out.
They can't figure that out, so I'll be good.
And to be honest with you, Scott's right. Most people aren't going to read a story about New College or what Richard Corcoran's going to do or where he came from or what he makes.
Yeah.
But if they see he makes the same amount of money as a guy running UCF, so that means that you pay a guy to run a 7-Eleven the same as you pay a guy to run Bergdorf's. That's ridiculous. I mean, it seems so completely insane.
Scott-
and there it is in black and white without question the truth.
Do you remember the book?
Go ahead.
Remember the book Mike Herodopoulos wrote? I think you wrote about it.
Yes, I do. For was it Brevard State College or something like that?
He went there, and he was actually my history instructor. But then he went on to serve in Tallahassee, but got a lot of money to write a book on politics in Florida. And I thought you did the column on it. It was a joke. The book was a joke. But
I remember this was like 20 years ago. But I remember one of the chapters or leading pieces of advice was, if you're going to run a campaign, get a cell phone.
Yeah, right. But he also he said, and if there's backlash against something you do it early. Don't worry, because they will forget.
They will forget, and they're right.
Yeah.
They're 100% right. Let's move on to this bus thing, because this is equally as pissing offy as the other one is. My God Almighty, man! You wonder with the revenue that this city makes. I mean, it is just inconceivable how much money rolls through the city of Orlando, Florida. Inconceivable. And then you have situations like this as well. Tell me about the bus reality here, dog.
So the bottom line is that hardly anybody who doesn't have to use the bus takes the bus, because Lynx in Central Florida is one of the worst bus systems in America. Not because of the people who are in charge of it, because it is woefully underfunded. And to show you how underfunded, first of all, I'm going to give you the stat that may be right about this. In the most recent years, they had numbers for Orange County spent $96 million for Visit Orlando, $96 million advertising theme parks, $54 million running a bus system that covers 3 counties. Okay, so already it's twice as much. But to show you how underfunded this is, I can give you a lot of suggestions. I mean, a lot of comparisons. But here's the one that I think blows people's minds. Walt Disney World runs more buses on its property than Lynx runs to serve 3 counties. That's because 3 counties. That Walt Disney World has 40 square miles. They run 432 buses. Lynx has 310 buses to serve 2,500 square miles.
Wow.
That's the system we're doing. And when you want to talk about buses, it's even worse, because this is a community that needs public transit, because we have a high percentage of people who cannot afford to have their own cars or pay their insurance. And, we've written about them. We did a big takeout a few years ago, and we followed this woman who worked at Typhoon Lagoon. And bottom line was, she had to get up at 4 a.m. every day to get to her shift at 8:30 a.m. because the bus came around 5. It's about 3 hours each way. That's 3 hours. So put that together. That's 6 hours. That's like a freaking shift, right? She's got 6 hours because, as I think we've talked about before, the simplest way I can think to explain it is we don't have enough buses to go from point A to point B. So basically, we just have a cross section here. So if you need to go from Winter Springs or Ocoee or someplace like that down to I Drive, that's sort of the hypotenuse of the triangle. There aren't many routes that do that. So you have to take one bus to the downtown bus station, at least one, probably maybe 2 to get there to the downtown bus station, and then another to I Drive. And we have folks riding 3 hours, maybe a bit much, but an hour and a half each way. 3 hours round trip is very standard for a lot of these people. And this is to get to a job, mind you, that pays $13.50 an hour.
And the irony is the money that is producing, the money that they're producing, their help produce, is the tax dollars that they can't get to increase the bus system. Is that right?
Bingo. Absolutely. And there is an argument to be made, and frankly, it's one I subscribe to, that says businesses should actually be helping pay for these bus routes, because public transportation is a subsidy for these businesses. These employees could not get to their work. They can't afford to live near their workplace, so they couldn't afford to get there without a bus. Disney, to its minor credit, Tosh, let's say to its credit, has actually funded like 2 bus routes in the past, and they're one of the only companies that has done that. But public transit is a subsidy for these companies who employees couldn't otherwise get there. And you know what? A lot of us, we've been here so long, we think this is normal, and we think, who wants to ride a bus anyway? In fact, not much really gets my goat anymore, given what I do. Jim, you and I both get it. We take a lot of flack, it just rolls off my back. But I'll tell you want to steam my clams. About 4 or 5 people wrote to me after I wrote that column and said, well, nobody rides the bus anyway. You privileged prick. Excuse my language. Nobody wants to buy the bus. I mean, I guess there's maybe a few folks. They do it because they can't afford to get to work any other way. And in other communities where this works, people actually like to ride the bus.
Scott, I just came from Jersey. Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
It was unbelievably efficient. And so cheap to get from Jersey into New York. Let's say I worked in New York City. I hop on the bus. It takes me to the bus station. I take a subway to where I'm going. That's $6. What I just said was like $6. And it could be very efficient. And again, you could get more bus routes. And the funny thing is wouldn't it increase and help the workforce as well? Like if you had a more efficient system to get people who have to lean on buses for transportation, hell, as a matter of fact, if it was more efficient, maybe people would stop driving as much and use the bus more if they thought it was an effective way to get from A to B.
You could go on and on. It would take more cars off the road. It would potentially help people work 2 jobs, which maybe isn't ideal. But if you're spending 6 hours on a bus, you're basically working another job to get round trip. And to talk about how other people use it, I got a lot of notes, and 95% of people were very supportive. One that I got that stuck with me to show you that people use it was from a guy who served back in Pearl Harbor, and this was what he wrote. He said, "When I was stationed in Pearl Harbor, I rode the bus everywhere, and I was glad to have it." Because a lot of people like to do work or watch TV or listen to something while they're on a bus. He said, "Decades later, when I worked at the Disney Data Center, I really did not like the daily drive and looked into taking the bus. I found out that I would have had to have left my home in Oviedo at 0330, military guy, mind you, at 3:30 a.m. to get down to my job by 8 a.m. And that was if everything ran exactly on time." That's the system we've got in this community right now. And we're funding, and while we have all that, we're funding advertising for tourism at twice the rate.
But at least we have a Pitbull song. Guys here says, this is a text says, "I get up at 3:30 to walk 3 miles, catch a bus from downtown Apopka to Altamont Sunrail, from that Sunrail to Altamont to Sand Lake Road to be at work by 7 a.m. 3.5 hours early so he can walk 3 miles, get to there.
Oh, Jim, you're getting
all
mad.
All this person wants to do is work and earn a paycheck and support for his family and not, be a burden on society. And we're asking them to do 3. I mean, I just think that's sick. And by the way, for the record, since, I know you got your listeners who think this is, I like to bash on Republicans, which I do. This is a Democratic thing. 6 out of 7 county commissioners are Democrats, including the mayor, and they have never properly funded this. Most cities and counties that have a decent transit system, there's a designated funding source. We got a designated funding source for Visit Orlando. I've been here more than 25 years, and 25 years ago, politicians were talking about how they really needed to have a designated funding source for links. It's been a quarter century.
Wow. Unbelievable. That is so unbelievable.
How angry are you?
Well, it's very frustrating, buddy, because here's the thing. There are tens of millions of dollars available to do this. Can I ask you a quick question? Are they transparent about where they spend the money for Visit Orlando? Like, if you were to ask Visit Orlando, how did you spend the $96 million that Orlando gave you out of the tourist tax collection? Would they be able to show you exactly where that went?
Definitely not exactly.
Why is that not the case? Why don't they have to prove where every dime of that went?
They absolutely should. I will say this new CEO is the most transparent that we've ever had in all the time I've been here. In fact, when I asked, and you're going to get me all mad. The reason I was writing about this recently is because Visit Orlando, your tax dollars were paying to run radio ads to tell local people that hotel taxes were a good deal, that investing in tourism is a good deal.
Yeah,
tourism
we're okay
is
with
a good
that.
deal. That's not why we pay to Visit Orlando. We pay Visit Orlando to theoretically bring other people in here. But anyway, they basically tell you they provide check registries. But a check registry, all that does is tell you that maybe they spent $4 million on a consulting firm in Wisconsin. And there's no way for you to tell exactly, what that bought for. So it's not very transparent. It never has been.
It should be way transparent.
Every penny, every damn penny, nickel, every damn taxpayer penny.
We should know that should be something they print in the paper every year. That literally should be something like, okay, go to the Sentinel and find out exactly what the Visit Orlando spent their money on this year.
Absolutely, and it's all taxpayer money, and it doesn't matter if it's hotel tax or rental car tax. Yes, it should be accounted for. Like I say, I'll give them credit. When I asked in the past if I'd asked how much money they spent on that radio campaign, which by the way I heard on 104.1. When I asked how much they spent, they wouldn't have.
We got him.
How
dare he?
They shut him down.
He talk about our clients.
They wouldn't do what with him? You cut out there. What wouldn't they do?
Sorry. They spent about $300,000 running ads that basically tell people to be thankful for a tourism economy. That's literally the website they sent them to. They said, go visit thankyoutourist.com so you can.
That's so great.
Yeah. And you know what? Text your friend back from Apopka, the one who's taking that 3-hour ride every day. Tell him thank you.
Yeah,
Tell him
right.
he should be thanking the tourists.
Well, now you got him mad enough that we're gonna have to play Ennio on the break.
All right. Well, Scott, as always, we appreciate it. You can find him every single day. Well, not every day. Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays in the Orlando Sentinel. But you can find him on Twitter every day at Scott_Maxwell. Guys, good and loud for Scott Maxwell.
We gotta soothe Jim now.
Sweet heat. Have a good week. We'll see you soon, buddy.
Talk to you next week.
All right,
Bye,
man.
Truth Dragon.
Are you good? Should we bump the tunes? This is your new thing. Whenever you get angry, we're gonna play this.
All I can think right now is 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, 407-916-1041. Text us 77031. Trivia is coming up next. Load them up. We are going to give some stuff away. We'll do that next.
We have a prize. Get on board at 407-916-1041. Jim Colbert Show Trivia is brought to you by Cento Family Moving and Storage. That's CENTO moving.com.